Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Just Like You show. I am your host, Alexis Christine, and I am a spiritual mindset coach and Reiki master, helping women break through their limiting beliefs, rewire their brain, and manifest the life of their dreams. Just Like You is a podcast for all of the divine souls looking for guidance on their healing and ascension journey. We explore the depths of the universe, hold space for vulnerable conversations about spirituality and self-development, delve into the esoteric things like how to manifest, star seeds, the astral realm, and shed light on taboo topics such as plant medicine and so much more. I am honored that you are here to take this journey with me. I want everyone listening to be able to leave each episode feeling inspired and having learned something tangible to take away into their day-to-day life. If you feel called to work with me or explore this work deeper, please reach out at imalexischristine.com, or you can DM me on Instagram at iam.alexischristine. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Just Like You show. It has been a hot minute since I recorded one of these, which it probably won't feel that way to you guys because these episodes come out weekly, but I recorded like a batch of them. And then I went traveling and whatever for 5 weeks. So it feels like I haven't done this in so long, but I'm so excited to be back and recording and just sharing with you guys. It's honestly like one of the most fun things I think that I've done for myself. And it just allows me to be so creative and free, and I love it. So how are you guys doing? I hope you all have had an amazing start to the summer, since we're now in almost the end of June, which is just so wild because I went outside today and it's still freaking cold. Not cold, but like 19 degrees, which for me is cold enough that I need a sweater, even though the sun's out. So, you know, this is my life living in London, but we move on. I wanted to talk to you guys today about my ayahuasca journeys because I've mentioned it on TikTok. I've mentioned it here and there to some people. I've like briefly talked about it on Instagram, and I get a lot of questions about it. And I know I've mentioned it in a previous podcast with Isa when we talked about mushrooms and ayahuasca and how they can be good for you, etc. And I've actually sat with ayahuasca twice now. And yeah, I just get a lot of questions about what it's like, what it did for me, what the experience is. And so I just thought I'd come on here and do a two-part. Part one will be trip one, part two will be trip two, because they were vastly different, which was something I was not expecting. And if you guys have any further questions, just feel free to reach out to me on Instagram. It's at iam.alexischristine. TikTok is the same. And yeah, just ask away. So to begin, my first ayahuasca journey was back in February of 2022. I had been having a bit of a rough go mentally because of a breakup, which I have talked about on here before. We don't need to get into it again. And I decided to just go to Mexico and live my life for a month in a climate that aligned with me, which was wonderful. And ayahuasca has been something that's been on my radar for a good number of years. Like, I want to say maybe since I was like 17 or 18, I wanted to do ayahuasca. So yeah, like 10 years, more than that. And every time I tried to do it, well, I don't want to say tried to do it. That's the wrong phrase. Every time I like looked for a shaman or provide like a facilitator of ayahuasca, it was just like, it seemed so far out of reach. Like the only place that looked actually qualified was Rhythmia. And obviously Rhythmia is like, I would love to go, but it's so expensive. And I feel like, I'm sure it's lovely, but I really love the experience I had where it was like a lot more native with the shamans and like how they would have done it back when they first started doing the ayahuasca ceremonies. And there was a couple places I found around where I was living, and I had a friend go to one and he said it like wasn't the best thing in the world. And so I was kind of just like it never really aligned. I had an opportunity here in the UK, but then it ended up not working out. And like, you know, when the universe is just telling you like, not yet. So I'm in Mexico. I'm looking at like some of these like Mexico groups on Facebook. There was like a fitness one, I think, because obviously I was looking to get into like a little fitness community while I was there. And I just saw an Eventbrite post in that LinkedIn group for an all-female ayahuasca ceremony. And I was like, shut the front door. So I click it. The dates were in January, and I messaged them and I was like, are you going to be doing this again in February? And they were like, yep, these are the dates. Like, if you want to join, here's the link to the February event. And it was a week after I arrived in Mexico. And I was like, I couldn't even have planned this any more perfect. I get a week to acclimatize. I go do the ayahuasca, and then I have 3 weeks after to really transmute and integrate and learn while I'm still in this amazing climate, atmosphere, whatever for myself. And so I went. We got picked up in the center of Playa del Carmen, hopped on. Oh, I was going to say a bus. It wasn't a bus. That was a different trip. We went into 2 separate cars. I think there was 3 facilitators, all female. And then I think there was a group of 8 of us that were actually having the medicine and taking the ceremony. That's the wrong way. Having the ceremony and taking the medicine. And so we split into 2 cars. We drove 40 minutes out of Playa. It was in between Playa and Tulum where we ended up going. It was in the Mexican jungle. It was on this really cool, I don't want to say campsite. I feel like campsite's the wrong word for it. It had buildings and stuff, but there was outdoor areas with fairy lights all drawn around. There was other people you could hear in the different parts, having no, I don't want to say parties. I'm sure they were just chilling, but they were playing music. And our area was a massive campfire in the center with a little bar at the back. And then to the side of us was this big indoor outdoor room. So it's a structure that's got screens for walls essentially. So you're still outside, but you can be inside in case it starts raining or something. And then there was a couple washrooms, just a building with some washrooms to the other side. So it was our own little area. Okay, so this is also the thing with ayahuasca. You sleep on the floor. So we all set up our yoga mats in a circle around the fire, put our blankets and everything out, our pillows, got our little floor bed ready. And the facilitators set up the ayahuasca, their whole situation at the bar / in front of the bar. So that's where they sat. And we all just kind of got to know each other, chatted while they were setting everything up. And then when it was time to start, they went around and they gave us all a cleansing. So I know sage was part of it. They came and we all stood up one by one and they saged us from head to toe on top, arms were out, on top of the arms, under the armpits, up and down the legs, a full body cleansing, which was amazing. And then they went around again, and I'm going to be honest, I don't know what type of leaves they were, but they were wet, and they were literally almost washing us with these leaves. So not wet, I wasn't wet after, but when you're in church and what's his name? Pastor is the wrong word. The priest just shakes that water on the crowd. It was kind of that level of wet. So they come around and they're wiping it on our head, down our face, again, doing a full body cleanse. So really just prepping us, energetically clearing us of anything and getting our mind, body, spirit ready for this adventure that is about to begin. They went around and they offered rape or hape to everyone. It was optional. You didn't have to, but I was yo, I'm full in on this experience. Anything they offer, I am taking. So I took it. And if you guys don't know what that is, it's tobacco mixed with a few different herbs. I'm not exactly sure what they are. And it is in a little powder form. And it goes into this pipe where it's got 2 spouts coming out of it. One of them goes in your nose, in your nostril. And the other one is on the other side of the bowl where the powder is. And the facilitator blows into it and releases the powder all into your nose. So you have to make sure your throat is closed, because if your throat is not closed, you do not want that stuff flying down your throat. You're going to be coughing. You're going to be gagging. It's going to be burning. They told us to close our throat. And thankfully I'm very good at that. So I was okay. They do it one in each nostril. It goes straight to your brain. And it burns. And then you have to stand there and just kind of breathe it out, push it through. And then they do the other nostril and you're oh my God, can I just sit down? Because I don't know if you guys have ever, I don't smoke cigarettes, but I would assume that it's the same type of head rush in the beginning from tobacco, or if you've ever smoked weed and tobacco together, you get that kind of head rush. So it was like that basically times 1,000, because basically the point of this is that it grounds you and helps you stay centered. And so doing that before ayahuasca can be extremely helpful. And so and so they do a really big dose. And so I'm like having so much, like almost like it felt like the spins, like when you're drunk. And I was like sitting there and I was like, I can't sit up. Like I need to lay down. So I laid down and shut my eyes and I'm like, oh, no. Like cannot shut my eyes. I feel so nauseous. Like again, literally like the spins. So I open my eyes and like all I can fixate on is this one constellation in the sky. And anytime I look at that one constellation, it was like 3 stars in the shape of like an off-center triangle. I now have it tattooed on my arm. It just made me feel so grounded and so safe and like I was home. And actually someone made a really funny comment. They're like, it's weird that for you to be grounded, you had to find something like not on the ground, like it was in outer space. And I don't know how familiar you guys are with the term star seeds. If you listened to my episode with my sister last week, you may have like come across it. But I am a star seed. I'm from Sirius, and it's very interesting that like to look at something in the stars like was what made me feel like I was safe and I was at home. But anyway, so that lasted for about, I want to say 20-ish minutes where I just like could not do anything but look at the sky. And then eventually it started to like, I could still feel it in my system, but it was less intense and I was able to sit up and I started journaling and I like drew out the constellation because obviously no phones allowed at this point. Like you come to the ceremony, your phone is away. So I couldn't take a picture of the sky. And so I'm journaling it out, journaling how I'm feeling, writing what my intentions are for the ceremony, because with ayahuasca, before you take her, she's like Mother Aya, Grandmother Aya, you always need to set an intention. So I'm just like journaling out what my intentions are. And I want to say that this, like, they were playing medicine music and people were like meditating and, you know, just like vibing, feeling grounded. So I want to say that lasted probably like 40 minutes maximum. And after that, they came around and they started offering out the Aya. So one by one, we went up to their area by the bar and they said something in Spanish. I think it was blessing it before they gave it to us. But to be honest, my Spanish is a little rusty, so I don't actually know what they said. And then they handed it to us. We said, thank you. We went and sat down. And then we had to sit there and speak, like in our heads, speak to the cup and give it our intentions, ask Mother Aya for whatever it is, whatever guidance we're looking for. And we had to wait until kind of everyone had their cups. And then as a group, we all sat and took the first sip together. And y'all, I'm not going to lie, I was nervous. Like when I had that cup in my hand and I was sitting there, my heart was racing and I was like, oh my God, why am I doing this? Is this the wrong thing to be doing? This is going to be such an intense night. Like I was so scared. Like I was legit scared because you hear all these stories about people's trips on ayahuasca. Like I have a friend who went vegetarian after because he saw the souls of like cows and, you know, like just so many different things. And I'm like, I knew it was going to be a total life-changing moment for me. And so I was getting really nervous, but like, at this point, like you've paid for it. I've already taken the hape. Like, you know, you got to go. You're in for the night. So when it was time, we all like took it together, did like a big cheers, you know, took it back. It's only like a shot size. And actually, you know what? Did I even explain what ayahuasca was? It's basically DMT, but it comes from the roots of 2 different plants. And so they're like mixed together into this drink. Very, very simple explanation. But anyway, so it's about a shot size of this liquid. And I'm not going to lie, I actually low-key kind of like the taste of it. Like I like herby drinks. I like green drinks. I like the bitter. And this actually, for some reason, just tasted really good. Like some girls were not having it, but I loved it. So I was good to go with that. And they were just like, after we took it, they were like, okay, guys, like let your adventure begin. And we're all just sitting there like, okay. And basically we all just like sat there, the 3 facilitators. So one of them was the most amazing fire lady. Like she tended to that fire the whole night. She was dancing around it, playing music while she was doing it. She had this massive stick that she was like constantly mixing the wood with, constantly adding more wood to the fire. Like that thing was roaring the entire night. And it was honestly just so mesmerizing to even watch. So she's there, she's doing her thing with the fire. the other two girls start making music. They're like playing wooden flutes, playing sound bowls, like, you know, doing like proper like handmade medicine music. It was amazing. It was lovely. And basically we're all just like sitting and waiting for something to happen. And I want to say your body can reject it right away. So they say try and hold it in your system for at least half an hour so it has a chance to like, you know, actually get in your system, because your body will literally just make you want to throw it up. Like there's some people who started throwing up quite soon after. And it's not to say that everyone will. There also were girls in my ceremony who didn't purge at all. So it's not like a requirement, but more often than not, you're going to purge at some point in the night. So yeah, people started purging, and I, at this point, was still on UK time. I'd been in Mexico for a week, and obviously the first night I got there, I was just dead ass exhausted because I think my flight landed at like 6 maybe p.m. And by the time I like left the airport, oh no, it was more earlier than 6. It was maybe like 4. And then by the time I left the airport, took the bus all the way to Playa. In Playa, found a taxi to go to my Airbnb, shower. Like, I think it was like 7:38 by the time I actually like was ready for bed. And like being fresh off the plane from the UK, that's like literally 3 a.m. or something like that. So I was exhausted. I went to bed, and I ended up waking up the next day naturally at like 5 in the morning or 5:30, and I could just walk to the beach and watch the sunrise. So I loved that. I loved that little moment for myself, and I not forced myself, but I planned my day in a way where I could continue going to bed at like 7-ish, 8-ish every night in order to naturally wake up for the sunrise, because this is like a very big tangent right now, but I just hate waking up with an alarm. I really think it drains the life out of my soul, and it's just not something that I ever want to do if I don't have to. So I kept my UK hours. And so I'm like at this ayahuasca ceremony, and I'm yawning like crazy. My yawns are so big that I literally thought I was going to dislocate my jaw. And like, you know how sometimes when you yawn, you can like clench your mouth and like keep it shut if like you really don't want to have to do like the whole open mouth thing. There was absolutely no option for that. I could not control it. This yawn was just taking over my entire body. I honestly thought I was going to dislocate my jaw. I was like low-key kind of scared. And then in my head, I'm like, you know, like I don't feel anything. I'm just tired because of the jet lag, because we didn't end up taking the first cup of ayahuasca until 11-ish when I found out after one of the girls had checked her phone right when we were given the cup. She really wanted to know what time it was. So we didn't take our first cup until like 11 p.m. So I'm like, I know that I'm super jet lagged. I'm just super tired. Like I need to stay awake for the second cup. I'm not feeling anything yet, you know? So like all these thoughts are running through my head while I'm having these ridiculous yawns that I actually think are going to like break me. And so at this point, I was literally just sitting, watching the fire, kind of like swaying to the music. And I started to get a lot of thoughts popping into my head. And it's very interesting because the way I would explain it is that she gives you the thought from your subconscious, but then gives you the answer right away. Which I don't know if that makes sense to you guys, but I find anytime I've done psilocybin or LSD, the thoughts come from my subconscious that have been like repressed down, and it gives me things to like think about and work through after. But all those medicines do is bring the thought forward for me then to take post-trip, post-ceremony, whatever, and like work through, heal, you know, on my own and kind of figure that out myself. Whereas she does the same thing. She pulls the thought forward, but then right away she gives you the answer. And it was a really, really cool experience because I've never experienced anything like that before. And like I had a thought come through, and right away it was like, this is why this hurt you so much. Like this is the feeling you're repressing, and this is why you're having such a hard time with it. And at that point I had just lost a friend, not in a death way, but just in a way that we're no longer friends. And that person had really meant a lot to me. And like that just came forward and was like, this is why you're struggling so much with it. And it was almost comforting in a way to be like, okay, so like now I understand why this is going to take longer for me to process. Like I get it now, you know, because before I was like, You know, like you grow on your spiritual journey, you lose friends all the time. Like it never really affected me like this, but this one really hit me hard. And so it was moments like that that I started having where like all these random thoughts were coming through and I was like getting the answers to them. So it was like, it was actually really nice and really heartwarming. And I was just like, whoa, like this is really cool. Like I was loving the experience. And then the tiredness hits me so hard. And you know, when your eyelids are literally just like pieces of lead and they just force shut and you can't really do anything to keep them open. I was like trying so hard. I'm like sitting there looking at the fire and my eyes are just like shutting and they shut for like half a second and I opened them back up. And for that second that they were shut and I could not like open them, I saw so many freaking visions, like just symbols. Like I don't even know how to describe it. But then I realized like, holy mother F, this is not me being jet lagged, y'all. Like this is the medicine knocking me on my ass and telling me I need to go to bed. And that's when I started having my first little bout of anxiety. Like my heart started beating really, really fast. And I started to get like this nervous feeling. And because I want to say like 2 weeks before, like right when I was going through this like, I call it a breakup. It wasn't really a breakup because we weren't like officially together, but basically ending things. Was the first time in my entire life that I had ever gotten an anxiety attack. And I was just walking down the road, like to the grocery store. And I started like getting this anxious, nervous feeling. My heart was beating really fast. I was having trouble breathing. And I was like, what the F is going on? Like, what is this? Because I've never had an anxiety attack before in my life. And so I had started the process of like walking myself through it. If you guys listen to my breathwork episode, I talked to Steph a little bit about that. And I like, so as soon as I felt this on ayahuasca, I was like, okay, where is this coming from? Why am I feeling this? You know, like kind of working backwards. And so I'm thinking to myself, when did this moment of anxiety start? Like 3 seconds ago. Okay. What was I thinking about 3 seconds ago? And then it like, you know, like you just kind of work backwards. And I realized the trigger for me to feel this anxiety was when I realized that the drug was starting to affect me and that I was no longer in control of my body. And I do have this thing with like losing control, not necessarily of like the world or things in my life, but like of me. So yeah, it was like the moment basically I realized that I was no longer in control of my body and my mind is when I started to get anxiety. And it was like the second that I realized that, like the literal second where I was like, oh, it's because I'm no longer in control. The entire feeling of anxiety left my body like a wave. It was gone like that. And I had this moment of realization of like, holy shit, if I actually take the time to pay attention to what I'm feeling, when I'm feeling it, and how certain things in this world make me feel, I can be so much more in tune with my body and help myself through these situations so much easier. Like it was just, I can't even explain to you like the aha moment that I had because it might not make sense to some of you, but for me, it just made everything so freaking clear. And that was like my first moment of like, holy shit, this medicine's like really, really teaching me something. And then I want to say like 5 seconds later, maybe 10 seconds later, I get a wave of nausea. And I was like, uh-oh. This is not good. And I literally think like I have a fear of throwing up. Like when I'm on any medicine, if I know there's a chance where I'm going to purge and be sick, I like try to avoid it at all costs. And so I feel this wave of nausea and I was just like, this isn't fun. And I'm like, is this going to go away? Is it not? And then I remembered the learning that I had literally just learned. And I was like, okay, wait, I need to be in tune with my body. What am I feeling? I'm feeling this feeling in my stomach, this feeling here, this feeling there. Like, you know, just kind of walked myself through it, shut my eyes and just took some deep breaths and focused on that area. And the nausea went away. And I was like, OMG, I'm putting it into practice and it's freaking working. Like, this is amazing. And as soon as the nausea went away, I was like, all right, y'all, it's time. Well, I didn't actually say this, but in my head, I'm thinking, all right, y'all, it's time for me to go to bed. Like this medicine clearly wants me to go to sleep. So I finally lay down, I shut my eyes, and I start having the most insane visions I've ever had in my entire life. Like this was the moment when I was confirmed a starseed. And I always knew, like deep down in my heart, I knew that I was not from this planet. Like I have never really felt like, I don't want to say like I belonged. I feel like that's like the wrong word. But ever since I was a kid, like I look up at the night sky and I always had this feeling of longing. Like I would just look up at the stars and it was almost like I was missing something that was out there. Like I was supposed to be there instead of here, if that makes sense. And like I tried to explain it to people in the past and I don't really think anyone fully understood it. And then I remember I was in the Dominican on one of my mission trips where I was building houses and we were laying in the courtyard of the school that we were staying at, like just staring up at the sky. And because you're like up in the mountains when like there's obviously no light pollution, you could just see so many. And I remember trying to explain to the girls that I was with, like, I just feel this like weird sense, like, you know, like trying to like verbalize it. And they were looking at me like, what? Like, what is this girl talking about? So I've always just kind of had this feeling and like I've always kind of not fit in. Like I was never like the outsider per se, but if there's like a group of friends, even if I'm in the group of friends, like I'm never the main one in the group of friends. So like say there's like two people will be BFFs, two other people will be BFFs, and I'll just be like left out. And that's like been a theme for my whole life, whether it's been like in school, on sports teams, like I'm always like in, but I'm never in, if that makes sense. So I've always kind of felt that like feeling of just not really like fitting in with everyone and like not really meant to be here or from here. And so I had this vision. It was like the weirdest thing ever. It was so cool. I don't really know how to explain it. Like I wish I was artistic enough to like draw this out, but I basically saw like this like visions of my home planet, like where I came from, and it was just showing me like the houses and like I say houses, like quote unquote houses. They weren't real houses, but like the areas like people were like living in, and then there was like a dude up front that was like showing me kind of like what we looked like, and it was just like flashing from like landscape to landscape, showing me this with that dude sitting there. And then all of a sudden it's like, you know, in like those cartoons back in the day when like there's a little hole at the bottom of the screen that like gradually opens and like a character walks out of it. It was kind of like that. So it like opened up, and then this entity, this being just like looks at me and starts shaking his finger. And you don't need people in these visions to say things to you when you're on ayahuasca. Like you just have a deep sense of understanding of like what's happening. So he's shaking his finger at me, and I just automatically knew it was because I was trying to stay awake. He was basically telling me like, bitch, like you're supposed to be in bed like this. We're supposed to be giving you downloads. And all of a sudden there's this conveyor belt going from the like landscape background through the circle in the bottom of the screen. And it's like that circle's like leading to me, like to my brain. And they're just like putting almost like floppy disks on it, but obviously they weren't floppy disks, but like essentially downloads. And they were just like putting these downloads into my system. And I was just like, oh my God, like y'all wanted me to sleep so you could give me these downloads. Like I get it now. And it was like such a wholesome moment for me, because it was just like, it was finally confirmed. Like I finally understood what was going on and why I'd always felt this like feeling of like longing for something up in the sky that's just like so unknown and so unexplained. And then that vision turned into a couple other visions that involved like my family and my sisters and like my plans for my future. And I'm not going to lie, like this part made me feel sad as fuck. Like it made sense about a week after when I took an integration trip. But in this moment, I was seeing these visions and these like words were echoing in the back of my head, and it was making me think that what I had planned for my future wasn't actually going to happen, and that like my path was meant to be something else. And like I just felt this deep sense of like sadness, because everything that I've wanted in life, I thought, okay, keyword, I thought I was being told that it wasn't in my plan and it wasn't for me. And I was like really upset about it. And like, so these two visions that came up, I was kind of like, ooh, like this isn't fun for me. Like this, you know, this is sad. And then when those visions were done, I just saw so many freaking cool, like geometric shapes, and they were like dancing to the music. Oh, and by the way, at this point they had stopped playing music and they started playing like a playlist of medicine music. So people like Isla Schaefer, if you know who that is, and just like that kind of vibe of music. So like the music's playing and like I'm seeing all these geometric shapes and colors like dancing with the music, and then all of a sudden it just disappears and I'm just like laying there and like all the visions are gone, all the thoughts in my head are gone, and I was like, this is interesting. And so I sit up. I'm like still pretty tired, but I sit up. Everyone's like doing their own thing. By this point, people have been like purging. One girl beside me is like purging her energy through literal shaking. There was one girl who was just like, I feel so bad for her. Her purge was so freaking long. I was just like, holy crap, like how, like, bless you. And then there was another girl beside me who like was just going through it in terms of the emotions. And I'm just sitting there like, okay, like nothing else is really happening. And so the facilitators at some point, I don't know how long after this was, but they offered a second cup of ayahuasca. So throughout the night, the facilitators will offer up to 3 cups. If you're really not feeling anything, maybe 4. But generally, the rule of thumb is if you're awake and you hear the shaman offer another cup, like you go take that cup because you're not in deep with the medicine at that point. So they offer the second cup. I take the second cup, you know, give gratitude, give thanks, give my intentions, drink it, and nothing happens. I don't get any more like thought process situations. I don't get any more visions. I'm just tired AF. So I like lay back down, and it's like this weird like sleep where I'm not actually asleep, but my eyes are shut and I'm resting. So I can still hear everything else going on around me, but like my body's resting and I feel so tired that I can't move, you know? And that was basically it until the third cup. So then I go and get my third cup when they offer, and I sit there and I'm about to give my intentions. And all of a sudden I have this pit in my stomach, and I was just like, oh no, like I freaking knew what was about to happen. So I like have this like little mini gag, and Isa, who actually was on the mushrooms episode, looks at me and she's like, are you okay? And I just shook my head and I was like, nope. Grab my bucket and I just start purging into this bucket. And it was like I had fasted, right, for a full 24 hours before. So at this point, I this was on a Friday. I had fasted from the Thursday at like 5 p.m. So this is now Friday night, probably early Saturday morning at like 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. And I'm purging just pure like stomach acid and liquid because there's like nothing left in my system. And I'm making like the full retching sounds because there's like nothing for my body to like push up. And oh my God, y'all, it was not fun. It only lasted about a minute, right? Like it wasn't a long purge, and I'm so grateful for that. But I couldn't breathe. Like I would purge up, and then as soon as the purge was done, I would try and like take a breath in. And as soon as I tried to breathe in, I would just purge again. And it was literally like that nonstop honestly, it could have even just been 30 seconds. I don't know, but it felt like a good chunk of time, which is why I'm saying it was probably like a minute. And I honestly thought this was going to be how I died. I was like, great, this is it. This is my time. I'm choking on my own throw up because I can't breathe in between like the purging. This is how I die. I'm just going to suffocate, and that's going to be the end of Alexis. Like I was like, this is it. And then finally it finished, and I was like, oh, thank God. But my throat was burning, obviously, because it was like all the stomach acid coming up. So I was just like sitting there, like trying to drink water, still feeling like a little bit nauseous. I didn't feel like immediately better, but I like had this knowing that my purge was done. And then by the time the burning sensation had went away, I like looked at my third cup ready, and there was a bug floating in it. And I was like, you know what? I think this is a sign that I do not need the third cup. Like right as I was about to take it, I start purging. And then by the time I feel ready to take it, there's a bug floating in it. Like this is the universe just telling me like, you're good. You've had enough. You've learned what you've needed to learn, which is why I wasn't having anything else after the second cup. Like, you know, just relax, chill, recuperate essentially. And so basically the rest of the night, I just laid there like in that half sleep. And there was one point where, so the girl who beside me who was going through like that emotional like turbulence, she was really going through it. She was like bawling her eyes out at one point, screaming for help. The facilitators came over to like help her process whatever trauma it was that she was releasing. And like, it was like a really hard night for her. But as soon as that was done and she had released it, this girl was up. She was dancing. She was singing. She had so much energy. She was like the happiest person I'd ever seen in my entire life. And I remember like the music was good. Like anytime an Ayla Schiffer song came on, I said that so wrong. Ayla Schiffer song came on, I literally was like, I wanted to dance and it made me so happy. But like the most I could do was just like wiggle my feet because I was laying there so tired with like no energy. And so this girl starts getting up and singing and dancing. I'm just looking at her and I was like, I literally said to her, I was like, I don't know how you have the energy for this, but I'm so happy for you because I wanted to do what she was doing. And it was just like, she had the most beautiful and amazing like processing and release. And now you could just see like the difference in her was insane. So this is what I mean when I say everyone's journey is so different on ayahuasca. Like we were complete polar opposites in that moment. And then at one point I had opened my eyes and I saw the light starting to come through. So I was like, oh my God, this is it. This is my sunrise. I'm not going to miss it. So I sit up and I start watching the sunrise through the trees. I take my journal. I start journaling everything that I remember from the night because I can actually see now to journal because it's like light outside. And there's like still playing music. People are like slowly starting to wake up. And eventually when everyone is awake, we got up, and what you do after you purge on any type of plant medicine, whether it's bufo, whether it's ayahuasca, whether it's kambo, is you offer your purging back to the earth. So we like went and found like an area of nature. We like dumped the bucket out and like, gave gratitude, washed the bucket. And then we all sat down in a circle and we basically went around and we were like, like what was that experience for you? What's something that you want to share? And like, you didn't have to, but everyone ended up sharing something. And it was just so cool to hear everyone else's different experiences throughout the night because everyone's journey was just so different. And it was like a nice way for us to like kind of bond and, share the experience that we all just had together. Because when you're in ceremony with people, like their energies are all around you. Like, yes, you're having your own journey and no one's experiencing what you're experiencing, but you're all like in it together, if that makes sense. So yeah, we did that. And while we were doing that, we had all brought like fruit and nuts and just like yummy snacks. So those were just like being passed around the circle because we were all freaking starving by that point, and me especially because I hadn't eaten in like, I want to say a day and a half. And yeah, it was just like a beautiful closing. And one thing I will say that I really liked about how the facilitators handled this ceremony is that anytime someone was like crying or purging, they always started yelling like gracias, gracias, because what you're doing is you're giving thanks to Mother Aya. You're giving gratitude for her allowing you to release all of these things and energies out of your system. So instead of being like, oh, mother trucker, like I'm so annoyed I'm purging right now, or like, why is she doing this to me, blah, blah, blah. You're turning it around into a form of gratitude. And you're like, thank you for allowing me this experience of releasing this from my system. So that was one thing that I really liked. And then there was another thing that they did, which some people didn't like. I actually liked, but just throughout the night, they would yell like, I am loved, I am safe, like as they're like walking around the fire and like kind of chant it. And it didn't really resonate with me. Like none of them kind of hit home, which is fine. But one of the girls beside me, different one to the one I mentioned before, when they started yelling, I am safe, she started yelling it with them. And at the beginning, it was like a very weak, a very broken, like, I'm safe, I am safe. And as they kept doing it, you could hear her tone of voice changing because it went from like weak and scared to like, okay, no, like I'm saying this, to holy shit, like I'm going to be strong and say, I am safe. And then at the very end, she's like screaming like, I am safe. And like, you could tell she really felt it. And then it kind of whittled down into like a holy shit, I'm actually safe realization where she was just like, I am safe, and started like almost like laughing and like crying at the same time. And you could see like in that process, she must have gone through a situation where she wasn't safe and that was still like hindering her. And by chanting that out and like actualizing it, she went through the process of feeling like she wasn't safe, feeling brave enough to be like, no, I'm safe. And then actually realizing, oh my God, I am safe. And like that moment of relief. And it was just the coolest thing I've ever been able to witness. Because like you obviously, as you grow and you learn and you heal, you tend to have realizations where like you started in one place and then you get to the point where you're like, oh, actually, like, you know, like I'm here now. This is good. But to see it in the span of like, I want to say like a minute and a half, where you can see the entire thought process and the processing that's happening in someone else's brain, was just the most beautiful moment I have ever experienced in my life. It was so cool. So yeah, that was another thing that I really liked that they did in this ceremony. And then in the morning afterwards, we obviously like cleaned up all our stuff. The drivers came, they took us back to Playa. And I would say like it was an amazing first experience. Like I wouldn't have asked for it to be any different. But the one thing that I will say is that I wish they had done a little bit more of integration after. So this was on a Friday. And the next Friday, they held an integration ceremony, because just for everyone that they had done any type of plant medicine with, because they also did like mushroom ceremonies and a couple other things, which by the way, like this is all legal in Mexico. So it's not like it needs to be like anything that's hidden. But so I go to this integration ceremony on the Friday, and it was essentially like a group of people all getting together and just like talking and hanging out, which it was nice to be with people who were of like mind, but there was no actual like integration activities. And like I said to you guys earlier, I had those visions that really just like shook me to my core. They made me so sad. They really scared me. And for that week post ceremony, I was trying so hard to figure out what they meant. I was like talking to my friends and like being like, is this what my life is going to be? Like, you know, like just really having like, it felt like a quarter life crisis. And I'm not even being dramatic. Like I was really struggling. And what I ended up having to do was the Friday of the integration ceremony, that morning, I was like, you know what? Well, I decided this on the Thursday before, but I was like, tomorrow, I'm just going to take a day to myself. I'm going to take some acid and I'm going to integrate the fuck out of what this means, because I am struggling so much with it. I don't understand. Like, I need to figure this out. And on that trip, I just like, I did my normal routine. I went and watched the sunrise and like I swam for a bit, and then I went back to my room, and like, it was like a lovely solo trip. It was great. I got everything I needed out of it. I ended up having like, I want to say like a full mental breakdown about one of the things, because it was a feeling within me that I hadn't even acknowledged to myself. So like, you know, when like you're scared of something and you try and like not tell like you don't want other people to know that you're scared of it, but deep down you are. This was like a fear that I wasn't even acknowledging internally deep down. So it was there and I was just ignoring it every chance I got. Like I hadn't even acknowledged it to myself. And so this like opened that up for me and, you know, just kind of made me realize. And then guys, this is when it freaking clicked. One of my intentions was, well, actually my intention altogether was for Mother Aya to show me what in myself I needed to heal in order to live the most aligned life to like my highest purpose, my soul path, etc. And those two visions that she showed me that like made me feel really sad and scared me were the literal fears that I had to heal in order to be on like that path that I asked for. And for some reason, I just forgot that that was my intention. And I thought she was showing me what my future was going to be. And it wasn't until I took that trip after that it like all clicked in my brain. And I realized it was like she was showing me my fears of like what I needed to heal within myself in order to be okay. And honestly, as soon as I realized that, my whole world changed and I felt so much better. And like, it's something that I've worked on since. And like that month I was there, it was something I really put a lot of effort into. And I feel like I've made such great progress. But yeah, so that was, I would just say like, if you are going to do ayahuasca, make sure that there is some sort of integration component, because a lot of stuff can come up that post ceremony, you're going to need to learn how to integrate into your day-to-day life. And it might not make sense to you at that time. And you can have like a week of hell like I did, where you're trying to figure out what the heck your life is anymore. So I would just make sure that you have that. And of course, like anytime you do any type of plant medicine, make sure that it's always in a safe environment and you're with people who are like either qualified to facilitate it or are just like very, very experienced, and make sure that, health wise, there's not going to be anything like if, say, for example, you have a predisposition to schizophrenia, you probably shouldn't be taking any of these plant medicines, like just make sure that it's right for you. I'm not like telling anyone that they need to be doing this. I'm just talking about my experience. So that is basically my journey with ayahuasca, part 1. That was my first trip. If you guys have any questions about that, please let me know. Like I said, you can just reach out to me on Instagram. I'm always happy to answer DMs. I can even do like a Q&A episode if that's something you guys would be interested in, and like hearing what other people's questions were. So yeah. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I hope it was insightful for y'all and at least a little bit interesting, because I don't know why. I love hearing about other people's trips, but it might just be because I've experienced my own and I like to see kind of how it differs from person to person. But if you guys are enjoying the podcast, please subscribe, share with your friends. I'm just doing this as a passion project, so any type of sharing and exposure, just to help as many people as I can on their own journeys, is always appreciated. So I hope you guys enjoyed the episode and have a wonderful rest of your day, coming from someone just like you. Talk to you soon, guys.